Use your powers for evil, Schaefer.
Your evil is mine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 50 of Next Stop Everywhere, the fandoms. No, what am I doing? The fandoms. See, Karen's got me all screwed up. The Doctor Who podcast.
Hey.
I'm all thrown up. Yes, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. See, I'm already into this, and I'm already screwing up. So it's going to be a fun podcast. I can tell. Hello, everybody. So as you might guess, we have not one, not two, not three, but four people here today, including myself. Running down our special guest list, we have, of course, my wonderful co-host, Jesse Jackson.
Hello, Charles, and I want to say you are off to a great start driving the TARDIS, and I mean that with sincere. I would have. I am always afraid I'm going to go, and here we are on Set Lusting Bruce. So yes, or Storming the Castle. So
Well,
good job.
Glad I could just make you feel better, make you feel
Yes,
at home.
indeed.
And
Absolutely.
next, of course, we have my other guest host, my other co-host, Karen Lindsay.
I was trying to distract you, but hi.
Yeah, and doing a really good job of it. By
Thank you.
having Daredevil and the Flash make out.
No, not Daredevil.
Green Arrow and the Flash. I'm sorry. I thought it was.
Which makes even more sense.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I got you on a little tiny window, so it's a little tough to see.
Oh.
Okay. So.
And the first one was actually Wonder Woman.
But yeah, Karen Lindsay, who of course some of you may know from the Fandom Zone podcast, and now Jesse's playing Swedish Chef with his sonic screwdrivers. Everybody's got their toys. And
it's very unruly today.
And last but certainly not least is the return of none other than Ken Schaefer.
Hello.
Take a drink.
Yeah, everybody,
take a drink.
Just drink incessantly. That's a good point.
Yes.
Welcome back, Ken, and thank you
sir.
for joining us. Yeah, obviously we're doing something a little different this time with me hosting. So hopefully now that I've already screwed up, hopefully I won't screw up anymore. But if I do, don't not be surprised because this is me.
Well, it's kind of funny that it just has always worked out that I've been the bus driver on the podcast, and Charles, I guess a couple of weeks said, I can drive if you want. Really? I didn't think you wanted to. Absolutely. Do you want to do this now? He goes, no, you've already done the work. So this was actually Charles's idea. He thought that this, for our 50th anniversary, we should do something special. And Karen, it's always a prize and it's always a celebration when Karen joins us. And we had so much fun. Not only we had Ken on solo, but we had when Ken and Karen joined us to talk about a classic episode. I think this is a perfect plan for the four of us to visit.
I'm good with that.
Yes.
All right.
Me
And
too.
of course, being episode 50, what better episode to talk about and review than the 50th anniversary special of Doctor Who, The Day of the Doctor?
That's right.
Yep.
Plus, this is an awesome episode to talk about.
It is. There's so much going on this episode, which we'll get into. But before I do that, just want to thank everybody for coming here today. And also, let's run down really quickly, just give a little background before we get into the meat of the discussion. This, of course, is the 50th anniversary special written by Stephen Moffat because he was going to write this episode. It's the showrunner. And this was directed by Nick Huron, who also directed the episodes The Girl Who Waited, Asylum of the Daleks, and The Angels Take Manhattan. So he's had a few big episodes under his belt.
Absolutely.
Which made him a natural pick for director. And we've got a pretty impressive guest cast this episode. Obviously, Sir John Hurt as the War Doctor, which is just awesome.
One of my favorite actors of all times.
And he's terrific in this episode. I'm sure
You
we'll all agree on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Charles, do you have any behind the scene, of how he got cast or who came up with this idea?
Well, it seems, I mean, they haven't really officially stated once and for all, but it seems pretty obvious that they wanted to get Christopher Eccleston to reprise the Ninth Doctor for this. Eccleston reportedly met with Moffat. I don't know how that meeting turned out, but it eventually, he didn't. Well, that's true. The end result is, yeah, exactly. He didn't. He chose not to participate, to put it delicately. And as a result, Stephen Moffat's furiously rewriting.
Yeah.
Going, okay, backup plan.
Yeah.
And Moffat's backup plan, which he set up in the episode The Name of the Doctor at the end, which of course gets into this story, was that there's a lost, forgotten Doctor that the Doctor doesn't talk about. So we get this brand new incarnation, the 8.5 Doctor.
Yeah.
Who is between Paul McGann's 8th Doctor and Eccleston's 9th Doctor, logically. So it basically feels like Moffat gave the War Doctor pretty much all of the 9th Doctor's role in this episode.
And I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on that.
Yes.
I see that's on our agenda, so I'm going to skip forward. I'm not going to. I'm going to table my question.
Unless you want to bring it up now, since you've already made it so wonderfully awkward.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm curious what everyone's thoughts about. I have said and just to kind of give you a background, Ken and I watched this with his son Parker. They came over that day, and we watched the TV making of the Doctor Who movie first, and then we watched this together. It was the three of us, and it was really just the only thing would have been better is if you and Karen had been in the living room with us, because there was this,
Well, if you want to spring for the plane tickets, I'll be happy to join you.
I mean, Ken, who has loved the Doctor for so long, a tie on who's been bugging me longer to be a Doctor fan between you, Charles, and Ken, and then his son, who has just embraced a whole nother generation that just loves this series, watching it, and I said it's 99.5% perfect, and the 0.5% is at the end if Eccleston, when Hurt changes, regenerates, if Eccleston's face could have been there. Because the only nitpick I have with it, or I just think it's perfect.
Am I the only one who thought, I watched that transition really, really carefully, and I would swear that they superimposed the beginnings of Eccleston's face on right at the last second.
They supposedly did.
Yeah,
it sure looked like
you're not alone, Ken, because it's in the eyes. They brought in
quick.
Yeah, it is very quick. It's one of those you have to kind of watch it in slow mo to really catch.
Yeah.
But it is there that they kind of brought in Eccleston's eyes.
I wondered. There's two things in there that I think.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been more enhanced. There's actually a YouTube video that I saw where somebody kind of enhanced that scene to give more Eccleston, so it would look more like a natural transition. So if you track it down on YouTube, you could probably find it.
Because I specifically, when I rewatched the episode, which was such painful homework, I
picked a painful one, didn't I?
Yes, to get ready for our discussion, and I watched that close, right? I actually think by having one of the great actors of our generation bring in this role and having that kind of untold story of the War Doctor, especially after we had Paul McGann kind of do that little mini episode that kind of helped lead it to it. I think it actually is a better story even than if Christopher Eccleston had played the part that Hurt did. So that's my record. Not that I would have. I love Christopher Eccleston. I've really become to appreciate him, as I've talked about on the podcast and I've talked about with Lunch with Ken.
Mhm.
You develop a palate for the Doctor, and so you can throw bourbon in there. Most people, when you just start drinking bourbon, it just tastes like burning. But as you develop a palate, you taste and smell all these different flavors that the wood gives it, and you recognize how great Eccleston was in that role. And I've loved him in the Leftovers. So I would have loved to seen him part of it, but I think it would have been not as good without Hurt. So I'm on the record.
Okay.
You three.
Okay. Well, Ken, what's your, since Jesse kind of like covered that pretty well, why don't you give me your thoughts on John Hurt, and what do you think that was he a good replacement for Eccleston? Was it a good idea?
I think it was an outstanding idea because he brings a different kind of gravitas, and there's, because of the way his face, the scraggly look, and that's really uncomplimentary, and I don't mean it, but because of the way he looks, it's easier for him, I think, to convey the kind of pain and tiredness of fighting this huge war for all this time, and I think that's a really good thing. And I'm not, Eccleston's a fine actor. There's no doubt, but I'm not sure he could have brought that tiredness to the role, and just the way he did the whole no more, and you could really feel that he was just done.
Yeah.
and I think that so I thought it was outstanding idea, and to be honest, I'm a little surprised he did it, though. An actor of his, I suppose, with the 50th anniversary and everything, unless he was a fan, there's a part of me that thinks, that was really kind of beneath him, really. And the really great actors that we see in Doctor Who.
Yeah, we've seen Michael Gambon.
Yeah,
so
but almost every time when you have those people in the behind the scenes things, they all talk about the fact that they were fans,
right?
That they really like it, and so normally it's a TV show, and not since The Love Boat do real big actors lower themselves to be on TV. It's like I'm a movie guy.
Well, I'm sure a lot of them do it for their grandkids, probably.
And there's some of that too. Absolutely. I'm sure.
Karen, what's your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I would rather have John Hurt there than have Eccleston come back and resent being there, because that is not what I want to see him doing. Is right. Tripping his way through the role, being all butthurt about.
Do you think he would just phone it in then?
Yeah, or worse, resentful and moody and angsty.
But he is a professional.
No, I know. I think he would have been fine about it, but some of that would be telegraphed, I think, a little bit.
So let me ask you this then, Karen. If he had wanted to do this, let's say he was as excited about this 50th anniversary as like Davison and Baker and Sylvester McCoy did on their, the 5-ish Doctors, or, that little thing. Yeah. Let's say he had been just as energetic. Would you have had a different opinion?
That is so hard for me to say.
Okay.
Because John Hurt is like an amazing actor. And as much as I love Eccleston, he's not the same caliber for me.
Yeah, and I think I really like the way Ken put it. There is a depth that he brought to this, right? This weariness, and we Charles and I talked in one of the episodes when the Doctor, when he's on Gallifrey and they say the 12th Doctor, they say he's a war hero. This shows that he had fought that battle so long and had been in that war so long.
Right.
And I don't know if Eccleston could have shown that.
Yeah, I agree. And, Ken says scraggly. I agree. I think it's scraggly. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that word. I think that's how he wanted to look. He wanted to look like he was in the wars. And that was definitely the look that he was going for. And he wanted to look somewhat crazy. Is he seeing this for reals?
Yeah. Well, I think the War Doctor's faux hawk kind of pretty much.
I dug that so hard, right?
Right.
But I think the thing about John Hurt was that he bridged that gap between those two doctors so well that I really can't find any fault with it.
Yep.
I can't find any fault with it. And the fact that it's John Hurt just puts that nice little, cherry on the top, because I love him so much.
See,
he's a science fiction fan. He's done a lot of science fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that, he's English. He probably watched some Doctor Who in his life. He might have actually been fond of Doctor Who. So, and there's rumors that he might come back this year.
That would be nice.
This year for a little cameo. So
now, speaking for myself, thought, it would have been great just to kind of complete the set of the modern era to have Eccleston with Tennant and Smith. Just from that fanboy,
like on your shelf.
Exactly, like on my shelf. I want the collector's set.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's the OCD part.
But I think I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of fans, especially the modern fans, would have said, "Oh, that would have been great to see those three." That being said, though, I think if you were going to get anybody to replace the Ninth Doctor, John Hurt's War Doctor is obviously more than up to the task and proved that.
Sure.
So
and I mean, I would, and maybe it would make it too crowded, but I think what I would have loved to seen, the War Doctor was kind of a happy accident, right? If you had to make this change, and then it made it better. And how many times, Ken and I've talked about that with Babylon 5. J. Michael Straczynski has talked about, because of something, it led him to make even a better story choice. So I think, but it would have been interesting to see the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctor.
It's a great what if, isn't it?
Yeah, all three of them plus Hurt. And to have the interactions.
Yeah.
So.
And have Eccleston be the grumpy one with the with the little baby doctors of Tennant and Smith.
Yeah, that would be
Captain Grumpy.
Yes, it would. That would have been great.
Okay, so now that we kind of did that little divergence.
Yes. Sorry.
No.
Plus, imagine all the hair jokes.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Look at the ears. The jokes about the ears.
Yeah.
That would have been great. All right, so we start off this episode with an opening nod to the original show, which I thought was just lovely.
More than a nod.
Yeah, more than
it's a pretty huge one.
It is a huge one. You're right. With the original opening theme, and it's not the same original credits. It's a modified version because it kind of flows right into that episode. And then we get the original theme music. It's obviously a direct homage to the opening of An Unearthly Child, the very first Doctor Who episode from November 23rd, 1963. And you've got that reproducing that kind of exact same shot where you've got a policeman walking by the I.M. Foreman junkyard. But then all of a sudden, everything shifts to color beautifully. And then you see that, oh, guess what? We've returned to the Cohill School once again, where we find Clara teaching there now. And it just seemed like it was a perfect way to kind of acknowledge that. So
on that initial shot of the school,
yes,
where you see the sign,
right? Did
you notice who the headmaster was?
Exactly, in Chesterton.
Yes.
I was so happy.
So now I'm wondering, and it's a pity, Clara probably doesn't realize,
right,
that the headmaster knows the Doctor
too.
Also, exactly.
And why would they talk about him, right? Because they're not supposed to talk about him. So,
well, I suppose. And if he doesn't if he doesn't catch on that she's connected to him,
Mhm.
there's no reason for him to think that, she knows she's involved at all.
Right.
But
And I
I
would've-
just thought that was a wonderful nod.
It is not. It was great. And I want to know what happened to Barbara.
Well, she got married and moved away because that's what they did in the 60s.
Yeah.
That's
So she married Ian. Ian stayed on as headmaster. She retired or something. Or,
Why would she do that?
yeah, I know.
she had
Well,
babies and
they
she
had-
lives at home.
They had
That's
chemistry. I thought Ian and Barbara had great chemistry together. But that's
Sure.
maybe that's
She
me.
could do better.
Okay. She could do
She
better.
could do
Do
better.
better than Ian.
Yeah.
But obviously he had a future, man. He became
Yeah,
became the headmaster. All right. So with that in mind, though,
I'm not going to make a joke there.
yeah, okay. You just watch yourself, Lindsay.
Sorry.
You're on notice.
I'm skating on thin ice.
You are.
Okay.
So as a result, I'm going to ask this to you first.
Okay.
So, Karen, are there any other nods that you thought you just really loved and just thought that was a great little bit?
In the whole episode
in
or just
the whole episode, throughout the whole
Okay.
episode. Which ones do you like?
One of the things I really dug, and it's very subtle, although, people like us will notice it, was like all the retro designs throughout the episode, like in the wall of the museum, all the hexagonal shapes
Mm-hmm.
that are like the inside of the TARDIS. And throughout the episode, they place little throwback designs to like the 60s and the 50s and stuff like that. I really, really love stuff like that, especially throughout the museum and like
That
some
bit
of
that bit
those-
with the curator, right before the curator appears, there's that kind of like hexagonal pattern on the wall.
yeah, that's
that
the one.
That looks like the TARDIS roundels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the
It
main.
really does, yes.
There's other things throughout. If you just if you watch it over and over and over again, like I do, you can catch little things like as they
Mhm.
go through stuff. There's like a little pattern here or carpet or whatever, something. There, little throwback designs, retro sort of things. And I like that each TARDIS is different as you see flash through the door, that, each of the 3 TARDISes are different. And it's just really cool. I love that they made sure to separate all 3 doctors. And, keep.
And it's not obtrusive. It doesn't just like whack you
No.
over the head with it.
No, it's like, yeah, they're different. Great. Here's some little touches to show you that they're from different eras,
Exactly.
Very cool. And they have their own styles. And there were some jokes that were, coming down Main Street with the, the sonic screwdrivers
Yeah.
and all that. But, that's to be expected. And I love the sneaker bit. I mean, that was so cool.
The sand shoes.
Yeah, so great.
All
But,
right.
those little Easter eggs are what gets me. The ones that you don't notice unless you're really watching. Those are the ones I love.
Yep. Sounds good. Jesse, how about you?
I do not have the background as our wonderful guest, and you have. I did.
You got to step your game up, brother.
I know. What I found interesting is how much this ties to the modern era. There had been a lot of jokes about Elizabeth I. Even back in the space whale episode,
Mm-hmm.
where the modern Queen Elizabeth, talks about that, and so I thought that was kind of interesting that they kind of keep that, and especially when you bring in, I'm always rubbish at weddings, especially my own.
Mm-hmm.
That was really neat to see. I agree with you, Karen, especially watching this past time when you're in the museum before the curator comes, you go, oh my goodness, there's the round things. I love the round things.
Right.
I love the round things. What are they for?
I have no
Not a
idea.
clue.
So,
I have
yeah.
no idea.
And the whole, you've redesigned it. Oh, I don't like it. Or he's in his grunge phase back
Right.
then.
Yes.
And the timey-wimey, and
I don't know where
Come
he
up
gets
with
this
these
stuff.
things.
yeah, like, and Tennant looking there like, oh, what?
I don't know.
So there was a lot of in jokes and doing, and it was great to see the Baker scarf, and Smith saying, the doctor going, nice scarf, and
Yeah,
and
this
Unit,
was the first appearance of Osgood, right?
yes, and it
Yeah.
was good to see her again, and
Mhm.
and I loved hearing I used to work for them. You had a job? Of course I could have a job. And so that banter back and forth was really nice.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, any thoughts?
Yeah, several of the things that Jesse has commented on, I recognized multiple times before in almost all the multi-doctor episodes.
Right.
They go into one of the others of their TARDISes and, oh, you've changed it. I don't like it.
Yep.
I think the line "I don't like it" has been said like 3 or 4
Yeah.
times. They never like the changes, even though it's them.
Well, if you notice, the 11th Doctor does say, "Oh, you never do."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, he says that. Yeah, he says.
I
it in
think,
this
but
one.
I think the greatest nod that I saw that I really liked is in unit headquarters. There's a board,
Mhm.
and it's got string on it, interlinking like a police board. And
Yep.
if you'll notice, there are pictures
Right.
of companions and things. And if you pause that and look at all the pictures, like there's a picture of Susan
Mhm.
right there at the very beginning, and the line goes off, and it's like someone is trying to piece together the history of the Doctor.
Oh,
And
no.
it's really, really cool to see all these little pictures and these things that they're like trying to interconnect. There was a picture of the robot that's only in like 2 episodes back in 5 and 6. He had a funny name. I can't remember. I want to say it was a shifting robot.
You mean Chameleon?
Chameleon, yeah.
Yeah, for
There's
the
a
fifth-
picture of
for the fifth
Chameleon
Doctor.
on the board.
Yeah, he was only in 2 episodes of the 5th Doctor era, where he
Yeah.
joins the TARDIS and then where he leaves the TARDIS.
And he
because-
leaves the TARDIS.
But
It's like-
apparently he was there the whole time. They just never saw him. 'Cause he's like in a storage closet somewhere,
he's hiding. It's like
which I thought was funny. But yeah, I love
He's in the pool room. He's holding the towel.
I love the bit where Clara is actually looking at that bulletin board and she's looking at Susan's picture.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of linger there a little bit. So she's kind of like, just kind of taking in the fact that the Doctor has a granddaughter, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's that, of course.
And
Well,
of
maybe
course-
she and Shielder can go and look up Susan on their many gallivanting travels at this point.
In their time traveling restaurant.
That's right, in their time traveling restaurant. Well, at least her chameleon circuit works. It's not just the
Or it worked once, and maybe it's
Yeah, at least
maybe
once.
it's stuck. Maybe it's stuck now.
It's stuck at a restaurant.
Stuck. Okay. Moving on. The Zygons. Now, and somebody's phone, which was left on during the broadcast. Jesse.
Yes, but it is the right
At least
musical
it's-
tone.
That's true. At least it is the right ringtone, but
Mhm.
hit that mute button, buddy.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, exactly. Shakes finger. So the Zygons. Okay. Ken's probably, Ken and I are nice old Doctor Who fans. So I'm sure Ken remembers during the Tom Baker era when they first appeared in Terror of the Zygons. So how great was it for you to see the Zygons again after all these years, Ken?
I thought it was really cool. And one of the things that I really liked about it is they were much more believable. They were wet, they dripped, they took
They were
some
gooey.
pages from Alien, and the transitions weren't just poof, poof, there was some good special effects as they morph. And I really like that because that
They
was
were
one
very
of
eager before Alien, because Alien didn't come out till 79, and I think the Zygons were like, what, 76? So,
probably no. I mean in the 50th anniversary, they're very wet. I don't remember them being wet in the 60s. If the suit was, in fact, I always took a lot of grief that the Zygons are one of the monsters that are one of the aliens that people see and really made fun of in the 70s because it was such obviously a rubber suit. If it had been in Japan, they'd have loved it. But for us, it was a little less. But anytime they reinvigorate the original stuff, that just makes my little heart happy.
they do hit the nostalgia buttons, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and we're all suckers for it. So there you go.
Suckers, Zygons. I see what you did there.
What you did there.
Yes,
Very
indeed.
Sly, very sly. Karen, how about you? What do you think about the Zygons coming back?
Well, they wanted shapeshifters,
Yeah.
So they picked Zygons.
Better.
And I think they kind of wanted stuff from every era.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is what they picked from that era. It fit the bill. They aren't my favorite villain, just mostly because I think they're grody. But that's kind of part of their charm, though,
now
right?
we're getting Captain Kirk coming in. What's up with that?
It's Jesse.
Mute button, buddy. Now you're on notice, Jackson. See what happens when he's not in charge? He whatever. I'll just let the phone ring.
Absolutely. Hey, I usually hey, that's right. I don't have to be the designated driver this time.
He's trying to sabotage me.
He's literally phoning it in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
So now then Chris is going to send a text back going, "Sorry I bothered you during the podcast."
Of course.
I've turned it mute. Are you happy now, Chuck?
Yeah. Ooh, now it's on.
Go ahead, Charles.
See what I get for trying to be a little professional here.
I know.
See,
I would let you be super.
If you really want to be professional, you wouldn't have invited me.
That's true. I have to keep in mind that there's 4 of us, so
Absolutely.
It's going to be chaotic no matter what. So
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Zygons. They're good.
Okay, so Mr. Phone Interrupter.
I had no memory of the Zygons, though I did think it was really funny, the Queen Elizabeth bits and the back and forth, and I realized why there's dust everywhere. But what I kept thinking of is how, for all of the criticism that Stephen Moffat gets, not only did he give us a very good self-contained 50th anniversary story, but he set and then came back to arguably one of the best 2-parters of the modern era.
Right.
Where we get the wonderful, 12th Doctor talking about war and peace and everything. So
in the Zygon invasion, that was. Yeah.
So I kind of thought about that. Like, this is more than just we brought him back for this special, but he actually set a seed that I don't know if he planned on bringing back or not, but it came back. So that was what I kind of remembered about it and was impressed with.
Yeah, they followed up pretty nicely, I thought, too. Yeah. Yep. So do you think, though, that it's distracted from, like, the central storyline of the moment?
No,
I'll open that up to everybody.
Okay, well, I'll go first. I didn't. I felt like you needed an adventure. I think if you're going to nitpick the time in the Tower of London, and all the discussion about, figuring out that it's the same sonic screwdriver and then the door wasn't locked to begin with, if you wanted to really complain, what was that needed for? Well, it was needed to have the discussion. So I think the whole story fits. And I think there is a self-contained, you know how much I love the Husbands of River Song, but that was an episode of, 2 parts, where you had just the slapstick, screwball comedy at the beginning and then a heartbreaking end. This, I think, weaved back and forth in the whole story that it felt like a Doctor Who episode and that had a great payoff. Okay,
fair enough. All right. Anybody have anything else to add to that, or?
I think they wove it into the story fine. It was used as part of the main story, so with the doubles ending up doing stuff that kind of weaved into the.
Plus, I thought it gave David Tennant some great comedy bits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, with Elizabeth and all that.
Yeah. Which he does do so well.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently he's really bad. The 10th Doctor is really bad at detecting Zygons.
Yes,
even with this machine that goes ding.
Right.
Yeah, and the scene with the rabbit, is just really funny. And it is.
Can I do a behind the curtain kind of thing right now?
Absolutely.
With you, Charles, mostly.
Yes.
Can I say how disconcerting it is to be right in the middle of Jessica Jones and then watch this?
Yeah, because
Parker and I are watching
covered that
Jessica
on the,
Jones.
we
just
covered
watched the
Jessica
second
Jones on the Fandom Zone podcast. So yeah, it's probably throwing Karen off a lot. To be
It is.
Well, let me join in with you. Is I watched the Day of the Doctor yesterday, and so and after I did that, I ended up pulling up the next two episodes of Jessica Jones. I think it's episodes 7 and 8.
Yep, those are the ones we're going to be talking about this week.
Okay, so I don't know how far you are, Ken, but
we just watched episode 2 last night, so no spoilers.
okay, so
Well, it's only one
Yeah.
every week. So.
yeah, so it's the house thing, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
They'll understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and so
you got a ride ahead of you, Ken.
yeah, and it is I think it shows the depth of Tennant's acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this comedy and the charming of the Doctor, and then he brings a little bit that to this character in Jessica Jones, at the same time being as creepy as that.
Yeah.
Eval.
What is that? How's
Just
that?
a tiny bit of that. I mean, he's charming. He has this charming side in Jessica Jones, but man, the creep factor is like...
Yeah, it's not like in Doctor Who he doesn't go around going, Elizabeth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Smile for me, Elizabeth.
Oh my God.
Telling a little girl who just told you she has to go potty to just stand in the closet and let it go. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yep.
You
have no idea. You have no idea what you're in for, Ken.
No, you don't. All I can say is the episodes that we're up to now compared to the Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Like my head is spinning.
All right. So let's focus back on the Day of the Doctor.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
Okay.
Apologies.
It's Karen and me. We're gonna digress. It just happens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have my sound effect.
Exactly.
Well,
What is
It's
this?
the segue that's happening right now.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Charles, there was and this is my fault because I had I distracted you, but I just saw you you talked about Eccleston,
Mhm.
but you also wanted to ask the question about Billy Piper playing the actual Rose Tyler instead of the conscious of the thing. So
I did. I was kind of wondering about that. Yeah, because Billy Piper, and obviously she plays the moment in this, who is a physical representation of manifestation of Rose Tyler, and obviously, and I think this is another indication that it feels like the War Doctor was basically rewritten scenes for the Ninth Doctor. Because Rose Tyler, or at least Rose Tyler's image, would have made much more sense with Eccleston in that scene, in those scenes, I think, than the War Doctor. I mean, they do try to explain it by saying, well, that she says, well, I'm from your past or your future. I get confused or something to that effect. I'm not sure which. So they do try to acknowledge it, but doesn't it seem like, Rose would have, or at least Rose, with air quotes, Rose, with the laser beams, freaking laser beams, Rose. Doesn't it just feel like she would have worked much better with Eccleston's Doctor than Hurt's Doctor?
She was probably already signed.
That's what I'm thinking.
Probably.
That's what I'm thinking. So, So there's more furious rewriting, typing of keys, and Moffat's like pounding down like a fifth of Jack Daniels, going Eccleston shakes fist.
But it's not like they're gonna drop her because every time she's on, the ratings spike.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And so I'll ask you, Charles, would you have preferred a different character than, or were you happy that Billy Piper was part of this anniversary?
See, I wanted Billy Piper in that anniversary. I wanted as many people in that anniversary as possible. So I was perfectly happy to have Billy Piper there. I would have liked to have seen more companions interacting with Clara, at least a couple.
Yeah.
So I thought that Billy Piper would have, and this is kind of the reason I posed this question on the agenda, is that I kind of thought that I would have liked to have seen Billy Piper as Rose with Clara. to see those two interacting. Instead of her as the moment. Not that now that doesn't take away from what she did as the moment, because I thought she was superb with John Hurt's doctor.
So let me ask you this. What if the moment kept changing into different companions?
That would have been really cool.
That would have been that would have been a great way to work in past companions.
Yep.
To kind of be shifting.
With the same dialogue,
Right.
the same...
You could have brought back Martha, you could have brought back Donna, you could have brought back Amy. So, yeah. So how great would that
Since it's not really them, you could bring
right.
it from
It could have been any visage.
That's a really cool thought. I love the fact that
Ace. How great would it have been to see Ace again, even as the
that would really...
E9 with the real voice coming out.
When they announced that Billie Piper was going to be, fandom went crazy thinking, okay, well, it's going to be the alternate dimension, doctor and with Rose, when you're getting that. And so I found it a really nice way to use her as that moment. Also a little bit of the doctor's wife, right? With the Neil Gaiman episode where the TARDIS does the same thing. I'm confused about time and such. So,
Gallifreyan, it's Gallifreyan technology. Apparently, it has a problem blending,
because it can master time. It doesn't really see it as something outside of itself to understand it.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't perceive time in that linear viewpoint. It's all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will admit, how sometimes when you rewatch things, especially at my age, things become clearer. And this time it was very clear. I had a better understanding of, Bad Wolf, Rose, was the conscience of the weapon. Before I kind of vaguely understood that and knew she was something to do with the weapon. But this time, with the Gallifreyan army talking about it and then connecting, I went, I connected the dots a little better this time. So
now, did you get the feeling that they kind of dropped the ball a little bit with the 10th Doctor? Because he does, like when John Hurt's War Doctor mentions, Bad Wolf girl, I could kiss you. And the 10th Doctor is like, Bad Wolf, wait, what? And then it's kind of dropped.
Yes, I did notice
if I was the 10th Doctor, I'd be like, wait a minute, you just said Bad Wolf. What did you mean by that?
Right, yes.
What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
They get kind of fuzzy after regeneration, though, right? I mean, that could get lost a little bit, maybe. Yes. But that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, I mean,
big thing.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the 10th Doctor, that's his thing. I mean, apparently he's 904, which I guess is farther along than after he met Rose. So
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a little much.
All right. So, Kate Stewart, she goes a little overboard, in my opinion, with this whole nuclear countdown thing.
Well, they had a thing about red buttons.
Yeah.
In the episode, didn't they?
They did, because, we've got the red button with the moment.
You know how I have a thing about mirrors in episodes, right? This was definitely
I think that was the whole point. They were trying to mirror the whole drama with the War Doctor in the moment, that decision, versus contrasting it with the Kate's decision.
Right. And I think that was essentially why they chose that. So was it an overreaction is what you're going to ask. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you just spoilers. Hello.
I know. Sorry.
Thanks, River.
Sorry. So was it an overreaction? Yes, 100%. But they chose it in order to compare and contrast to the other storyline, obviously, because, the other one was this big dramatic, we're going to blow up this whole planet. So here, let's show you that we're not going to blow up London either. Right. But also, it was her way of making sure that the day was saved. Because obviously they're not going to let London get blown up, right?
Yeah.
She was
she was pretty. Ken, what did you think about that?
The I'm going to agree with what Jesse was saying just a couple of minutes ago about not understanding what was going on. Almost everything with the conflict with the Zygons didn't really set in. And in fact, if you were to ask Parker, during the 2-part Zygon episode that we had this season, I'm like, wait, when did this happen? What? Huh? I just, it hadn't clicked at all. So now I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, okay. Now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then it clicked one more time in that this is actually a parallel for what the Doctor does on Gallifrey.
Right.
And so, like Karen was saying, I absolutely agree. Is it an overreaction? Yes, but it's a necessary overreaction for the story.
Right.
And hey, not
in order to show us
Yeah.
the difference between the decision they take on Earth and the decision the Doctors take on Gallifrey. It's just that parallel to balance the story in our mind. That's all it is.
And then I noticed the two Osgoods.
Yeah.
Have a good relationship almost immediately. And that's why the Doctors put them in charge of keeping the peace.
Yeah.
Because even before the peace is ushered in, the Zygon Osgood gives the inhaler back.
Right.
The real one.
I was just going to mention that because they figured it out first which one was which.
Yeah.
Because of
the
real Osgood.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Real Osgood coughs. So obviously she's the one who needs the inhaler. And they kind of keep it to themselves. They're like, shh, don't talk.
Yep.
Yeah, and I liked, at first, she's the fake Osgood, right? Is going, I hate when I get a defect one.
Yeah.
And, I wish I did get your sister. She starts out being mean, but somehow or another, very quickly, there is they're liking each other. And I do agree that's kind of pretty cool. And
Can I point out another little thing?
Yeah.
This might be another reason they use the Zygons, because we have all the Doctors there living in each other's shoes. They're all the same person living in each other's shoes.
Right.
And we have these doubles living in each other's shoes. So it's another parallel of the story.
Themes, yeah.
Right. So Osgood, the Zygon Osgood, understands what it's like to be this defective Osgood.
Yes.
And so it learns to be, I guess it gets this grudging respect for the real Osgood, and that's what ends up
sympathy.
bonding together. And they're just adorable, aren't they, when they finally go and...
Yeah. Well, you can see kind of why they kind of played that up in the Zygon invasion later in this past season, Series 9. Because that dynamic, that whole idea that they're almost like sisters. They refer to themselves as sisters. So I thought that was really interesting.
Right. And, when the Doctors first see that they're all the same person together,
right?
Separate but together, and they prove that they're all the Doctor by showing the sonic screwdrivers to each other. They're all very distrustful of each other. They don't want to all be together. Why am I going to trust you?
Yeah.
I know where I've been.
And I did love the line when the War Doctor says, "Oh, you're his companion." They get younger all the time. And this, which
is a great pot shot at the younger Doctors.
Right.
Yes, which is so appropriate. I have a friend that has been very vocal that she cannot stand Capaldi. She just doesn't. And then after the Christmas special, she emailed me and said he finally won me over. At the end with River Song, I now understand him and embrace him, and I like the old guy now, is how she put it. Yes.
Well, he's winning him over piece by piece.
Absolutely.
And if you're not digging Capaldi, I'm sorry, there's something seriously wrong with you, because he's awesome.
Yes.
He's great.
He's great.
Okay.
Pity we may not have much more of them.
Well, in the 3 years, that's typically what we get with doctors
Yeah.
throughout
And
history.
as we produce on the air, I do want us to sometime during this break, Charles,
Yes.
have Ken and Karen back, and then ask for people, and to kind of, how we went through our future companions.
Right.
I think you should do a wish list on doctors, because there was the rumor floating around that Tim Roth is where a lot of people are wanting.
Really? I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah,
Can we
I
get
had heard
maybe
that also.
a non-white male doctor, though?
Well, I know. I'm just saying. I think
I
that.
mean, no offense. I mean, if they're qualified.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead, sir.
That's okay. Well, we'll go from one controversial topic to another controversial topic.
All right.
Meaning, in this case, Moffat's reversal of the destruction of Gallifrey. This is something that was originally introduced by Russell T. Davies when he had the Ninth Doctor being so traumatized by the Time War.
Mm-hmm.
And like doing things that he never thought he could, and that like I watched my planet burn, and all that blah 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 blah.
Emo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Emo
that's
doctor.
emo.
Right.
Emo doctor.
Yep.
My life is black. My planet is gone. Boo hoo. I'm going to go
Right.
home and listen to Sunny Day Real Estate.
Writing slam poetry in the back of the TARDIS.
So yeah. So I'm going to put this open this to everybody. Was this a good decision by Moffat to kind of redeem the Doctor as someone who actually was able to eventually figure out how to save Gallifrey? Karen's raising her hand. Karen, we'll go to you.
I kind of liked it.
Mm-hmm.
The way they did it, they left it so that the gravitas was still there,
Mm-hmm.
because it still kind of happened.
Right. As far as the War Doctor and the 9th and 10th Doctors are concerned.
Right. But then it didn't happen. So it also leaves potential storylines open, other characters, other Time ladies, Time Lords, Gallifreyans.
Romana. Nope, just saying.
Right?
Oh,
Just-
please.
Just saying.
Right there.
So many other people. And also, there must have been other worlds impacted by the destruction of Gallifrey that weren't, because of this reversal. Because, the butterfly effect and all that. What are we going to explore things that were unmade because of this? There's so many possibilities
Right.
now. Can someone show up and be super angry that some timeline was changed in their world and they are experiencing repercussions from it? That would be an awesome timeline to see.
Well, see, I'm going to take a contrarian position.
Go
and
for it.
say that indeed the planet never did blow up.
Never ever.
Never ever. That what we saw transpire
Mhm.
is the only thing that ever happened. But because they forget,
So you're saying it's a bootstrap paradox
yes,
to use,
which we have because we've had like 3 of them already.
yeah.
And so I'm just going to go with that. What we see is what always happened. So there is no.
So
The only thing we haven't seen, the only really big question hanging out there is when was Gallifrey
hmm
discovered or freed, or because he's hiding it away in a pocket universe, and yet somehow the Time Lords put him into a castle and torture him for a bazillion years, and
Right.
then he comes out of that castle and he's back on Gallifrey.
So, but we know that there was a war
Yes.
Right.
for quite some time, a long time.
And
What
apparently
ended-
at the fall of Arcadia, which is the last day of the Time War, when the War Doctor was going to press the button, is like,
Right? They did all this weird
no
stuff
more.
in the air. Yeah.
Yep. So apparently at that point, that's when Gallifrey vanishes
Right. In this little.
into this little pocket universe, and then gets kind of shunted off to the end of time, as
Yeah.
we find out in Series 9.
The Bottle City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The
And,
box.
and
The
Battle
box.
City of Candor.
Yeah.
Andor, that's it.
Yes.
That's-
I agree with Ken. I do think it's a bootstrap paradox, just because we've had ton of them this season.
Right.
And I do think that in the doctor's mind, the ninth doctor has the guilt because he doesn't remember what happened. So in his mind, he remembers, taking the moment and destroying Gallifrey. And so I think that's why, and it's a perfect retcon that fits in perfectly, and it does have that circular logic of that.
Moffat loves.
Yes, he does.
Clearly, he loves them.
Absolutely.
See, I'm one of those people that I know how Doctor Who time works.
Yeah.
But because of the pain.
Oh, you're the one.
No. I don't understand it 100%.
I'm just going to back way before things get
No.
ugly. Okay.
I'm saying that in a general way, as in I understand that it doesn't work. Let's put it that way.
It is not very hard. Yeah,
Right.
I'll say that.
So one of the things that I always have in my mind is that once you do something, it's pretty much static. At least that's how I see it.
That initial timeline.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's true. That's absolutely true, because the doctors even comment on, how can we be here? This should be a frozen moment in time.
Right.
How can
locked.
we be here? It should be locked, but it wasn't, because
Why?
The moment. Well, did the moment unlock it then?
No,
See, that's
I
what
don't
I'm
think it was.
saying.
They've always done that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the painting's there,
Mhm.
right? And then
Because
there's
Arcadia did fall. Arcadia had already fallen.
open possibilities of, the painting is named a certain thing. The guy who is the curator having the fourth doctor's face, leaving that open for a doctor being retired. I mean, all these other things were time being different than what the doctors think it is.
Mhm.
So they're saying things that they believe to be true, and it's being disproved right in front of them. I mean, literally right in front of them.
Right.
So I'd like to think that they might think that they're going to forget it and it didn't happen and Gallifrey's still there and it never got blown up. But here's one of the doctors being retired, standing right in front of him, and it's not working the way he thought. Maybe that's a hint, that things aren't working out exactly the way.
Everything you knew has been changed forever.
Right. Right. I mean, the conversation that they have between the
Baker
two.
kind of intimates that he's going to revisit previous incarnations, and so it makes it sound like at some point you really are going to get tired of wandering around and you're going to want to sit down, and when you do that you might want to grab an old body and use it again.
Right.
Yeah. Now that kind of opens up the door to one of my other questions, where Tom Baker returning as the curator. Obviously, that was a big deal. Did it just make you squee with delight?
Jesse will confirm that I sure did.
Because they did a pretty good job keeping that under wraps for certain. Yeah. There was rumors, but no one knew for certain. So
There's rumors about him making cameos and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and this is the first time he's ever came back to Doctor Who, because he passed on the Five Doctors 20th anniversary special.
Yeah.
So nobody really expected him to return, really, for certain. And then there he is, like all of a sudden, he's back as the curator, and
I jumped out of my chair.
Wasn't that great?
I was so excited.
It was, and
just crying like a baby. So embarrassing.
All the older fans are like, he's back! I can't believe he's back! They're squealing.
My husband thought I was a complete idiot.
Like Justin Bieber fans were squealing,
yeah.
And so this kind of opens the door, doesn't it, for other actors to return as future doctors somewhere down the line? Like, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy. They could be potentially other future doctors, like the curator.
Sure.
And I don't know I think if you go to the well too often, I think you spoil the magic as much. And I also would, I would be okay them having the actors play a different role
Mhm.
and then just kind of have a, hey, you look like, and then move on.
Like a cameo.
Yeah, a cameo. I was, and yes, I was there, and Ken did make it. He was pretty excited. But I felt it was such a smart move, just emotionally, that everyone has their doctor, but to have that too many is the doctor.
Mhm.
I think we've talked about this before.
The definitive article, you might say.
Yeah, to many, Mary Martin is Peter Pan to a whole generation of people on stage, and and to have that, and especially when he did not do the fifth, the five doctors, and he was so charming and so funny, and to see him and Matt Smith interact together,
Wasn't that great?
it was just
It was almost like a passing of the torch, wasn't it?
it was, and there was dust in the air even yesterday when I was watching this again, that how, and I am not totally against spoilers, but there's sometimes when you don't want to be spoiled, and why you don't want this ruined. And,
Right.
It's kind of like Paul McGann coming back. I did not know that was happening. And to hear that I'm a doctor, but not the one you're expecting,
That's
I would
great.
not have been, it would have lost a little bit if I had known that was coming. And to not know, it's like McCoy on The Next Generation, right? When Leonard Nimoy, when
DeForest Kelly.
thank you. Yes, DeForest Kelly. When Bone shows up, I didn't know that was happening, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was. The bit I love is like it's where Matt's kind of going into his rant, like I'd be a great curator, or like I'd be the great curator, and then all of a sudden you hear the voice,
The voice.
the
which
voice going
is-
like I'd rather think you might,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my god, oh my
No.
god, oh my god, no,
No.
a million emotions
And
flooding
then
your
it's
head
on
at once.
the back of his head.
Yep.
And you go, okay, it's kind of curly.
Yeah.
It looks kind of curly.
It's white curly, but
Yeah. And then
no-
they zoom in, and it's the nose and the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
And
no
like,
matter how much he ages,
yeah,
happily, his voice is still really strong.
Thankfully.
It sounds just perfect. And he came up with a couple of the mannerisms. He did the touching the nose thing, which it was one of his marks, and it was just wonderful.
And we just finished the holiday season, but you talk about the cliche of rosy cheeks and a twinkle in his eye. It's there. That magic in his eyes
Mhm.
is just there, and it truly was just. You're like, well done.
he typifies the doctor for me.
Mhm.
I mean, he is the mischief maker, the quintessential mischief maker. And that showed in that one little scene, it showed every bit
Yeah.
of that. Every tiny movement, every word he spoke.
When he's like shushing Matt Smith, and goes, shh, shh, shh. Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
And the back and forth, like, oh, yes, sir. And they're shaking hands and congratulating each other. And it really just.
Kind of like he rolls his eyes at one minute when Matt says something. And it's just so great. And I just wanted to, if I could have run up to the TV and hugged him through the TV, I would have done it so hard. I love him so much. And to see him in the show made it all the better. I mean,
it made the 50th anniversary special more special.
so
It
special.
did. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on a related note, should we have seen other doctors in this special, like the Eighth Doctor? McGann. We only got 6 minutes of him in the Night of the Doctor. Would he have been a good replacement for Eccleston instead of the War Doctor, or should we have seen like maybe David Bradley portraying the First Doctor as he did playing William Hartnell's in the Adventure of Space and Time, or maybe Sean Pertwee because we know he'd love to reprise his father's role as the third Doctor. He did it for Halloween and
I know.
posted it, so I'm sure he'd be up for it. So,
with that.
so could they have worked in, some more Doctors into this instead of just the 3 we got? Or
He's a badass, by the way.
would you have liked to have seen that? Jesse, what do you think?
No, I wouldn't have. And boo, Jesse.
Boo,
I
boo,
think it.
You're okay with the Doctors we got?
I would have loved Eccleston. We've already talked about that. That we could have had all the modern, Doctors in that role. I think it would have watered down, in my only opinion, the curator's appearance. That if you had seen the other Doctors, you may have been expecting it and going, okay, well, that's, you're doing Doctor Who bingo. Like, okay, yeah.
Oh, there's Sylvester McCoy. Oh,
yeah. And so I think that, my reverse the polarity. We'll talk about this. There's,
you have a reverse the polarity.
I do have a reverse the polarity.
Look
yes.
at you.
Yeah, we'll talk about something that has already been discussed, but we'll talk a little bit more.
Okay.
So that's my only. And I think just because it would have, I think it would have diluted, Tom's appearance.
Okay, Ken, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I absolutely agree with that. Although, there's a part of me that would love to see any of them. But because of, aging and time moving on and stuff, you've only got a limited access of what you can do. McGann's exit was perfect because there was an explanation on why he looked older. That, from the last time that we saw him until now, it's been a lot of, he's been running, trying to avoid.
He still looks pretty good.
He looks pretty good. Yeah,
and he did great for his 6 minutes, so I would like to have seen more.
Absolutely. And of course, all the modern ones, they all still look the same. But,
and
there's only so many excuses you can have on why someone who regenerated when they looked one way now looks completely different. Yeah, like for Colin and
yeah,
those
and
guys,
Colin obviously could not do it.
Right. But I think Davison still has that youthful appearance. He's been blessed with those genes. He and of course when we saw the him and Tennant,
in Time Crash,
they made like, oh, you're a little bitty, that's my fault. So yeah, I
personally would have loved to seen Peter Davison again, but
yes.
It's kind of hard because the dynamic works so well in this episode, I think. But part of me, it's kind of like, it's frustrating because it's like you want to see other Doctors, you want to see more, but then you're like, well, like Jesse pointed out, it's like, well, it might take away from everything else. And Karen,
well, and you especially, because everybody else got to see their Doctor. What the
hell?
Yeah,
where's my Doctor? Like,
I got to see my Doctor. I'm good with it.
Yeah, you're happy. See, I didn't get to see my Doctor. I had to I had to get like a little comedy special, the Five-ish Doctors reboot, to see my Doctor. But unless you count the fact that we all know who saw the Five-ish Doctors reboot that they were underneath those blankets,
right? Exactly.
In the under gallery, just hiding out there. It's just so they can get themselves into the episode. So
they were there.
Yes.
If anything, if we didn't get Eccleston in the episode for realsies, I would have liked to see his face overlaid, like we were talking about before, over the War Doctor's face.
Yes.
A little more fleshed out regeneration for the War Doctor.
In a more definitive.
I want to know why he actually suddenly regenerated, because they kind of use the old body's wearing a bit thin from the first regeneration. That was a direct nod to William Hartnell during his first regeneration to Patrick Troughton. But it just seemed like, well, he seems pretty spry. Then all of a sudden, I'm regenerating as soon as I step in the TARDIS.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. Although it may have just been, his task is done.
Yep.
That's what I took it as. Of course,
it was closer to a volition.
I can let go and I can regenerate.
Yes. Yeah, he had been through all those wars, like we were saying, and that was it. He, his body clock. Do you know? Well, I'm sure you know, but like when you get in an accident and your kid is in the car and all the adrenaline's running through you and you can lift the car, but then all of a sudden, as soon as you're done, your body shuts down.
Right.
So I think of it as like he's in the war. He's all in the thick of it. His body's
in the zone.
Right. But
Yeah.
everything's over, and all of a sudden, it's just he shuts down.
And
So that was in my head. That's
Okay.
what was.
and the other thing is because
That's a good point.
he had chosen, through the chemical with the crazy ladies that we see later,
The sister
right?
Karn.
Yeah,
Sister-
that he had specifically
Gotta be quicker. Ken.
Yes, he regenerated for that purpose. We need a warrior, and I think because of that is as we talked about, it's kind of okay. I had taken this form just to accomplish what I needed to accomplish, and now that I've done, of course, I would move on from that.
Right. Finite. He had a
Yes.
finite.
Yep.
Yeah.
His time was
Yeah.
done, so therefore he regenerated.
That's right.
All right. So
It occurs to me,
go ahead.
supposedly he dies,
Mhm.
and the Sisters of Karn bring him back because they can do that. And that
Yeah.
was established in Brain of Morbius way back,
Right.
way back,
Those crazy ladies.
which is one of the creepiest episodes ever.
Yeah.
It just because of its sound and everything, it has a different soundtrack than they usually do, and it's
Yeah.
just
It's very
him in that
it's
jar
very-
screaming.
It's very Hammer horror. That
It really is. It's really disconcerting.
yeah.
But so they have the ability to bring him back. And a thought occurred to me when I was rewatching that does this reset his clock? Is this why he's got more?
Mm.
Because he was resurrected.
Because he was resurrected. Now he's got another 12. Because he's supposed to have 12. I don't know.
Well, they made
on
it-
the other
they
hand,
made such a big-
in Hellbent, the guy drops a line of how many lives did we give you? But how did they do that? How do you?
Again,
Yep.
never know what's going on with this silly show.
Well, obviously, the Doctor will have as many regenerations as long as the show keeps running.
Right.
Exactly.
So it does. So yeah, they could have.
Who's the showrunner to just come up with a new excuse on
Yeah.
why?
Again, it's time travel. So whoever's writing it can pretty much play fast and loose with things as long as we buy into it.
Yeah.
As long as it's plausible enough for us to buy into it. And they have really played fast and loose with things, and we've still bought into it. I mean, I've
Yeah.
nitpicked,
You just
A
roll
lot.
with it. You roll with it.
but I go, you know what? It's entertaining. Who cares?
Exactly.
So, but even with this one where we're like, well, it could go this way or this way or this way. I mean, we can throw around all these endless possibilities, and they can all be true. So I really love that about this show is that, yes, all these possibilities can be true. It's whatever the writers decide to do in the future with it. Did it explode? Yes. Or no.
Or no.
Whatever they decide to do later. So,
And this is why Doctor
Schrodinger's
Who is.
cat of a planet blowing up. Okay.
exactly.
And this is why, in my opinion, Doctor Who is the best show ever.
I know, right?
Because you can do anything with this show.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an act of genius, the creation of that.
Right.
It's its own organism that just evolves.
An
And it's-
ever evolving show. Yep.
And when that's a sign of a great. That's why it's lasted so long. So.
Doctor Who is a mirror of its main character.
hmm
How's that from Benda?
This show.
Mm.
There you go. Yes.
Ooh, brain hurting.
Explodes.
It went all exploding like scanners.
The show just regenerates as soon as it needs to change.
Ooh. All right, so wrapping things up, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we get into ratings?
I'm smart.
You am smart.
I am.
I are smart.
You are,
Like Bizarro.
Jesse. Anything
No, it's such a. I sometimes get upset that some fans, and I realize that there's a percentage of people that are just very loud and mean spirited on the internet, but
What? There's obnoxious people on the internet?
No.
That,
Shut
you know,
up.
I think this was a celebration of 50 years that had a lot of love in it. It was a good story. It was respectful, but not overly serious. And I just think that, and no one will be shocked on this podcast that Mr. Optimistic Jesse thinks that, we were really blessed to have, Moffat and Russell T Davies before that in this bringing back this modern era. And it was such a celebration that as someone who's a new fan, I embraced and loved how it celebrated this revival, but it also, included things for you three that have been longtime fans, and it just hit the right buttons.
No, wait a minute. You're saying something nice about Stephen Moffat. You take that back right now, this
Yes.
mister. You just apologize because that's not allowed. All right. So, okay, let's give everybody's ratings. They should be pretty high, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So, let's go with ladies first. Let's go, Karen.
I give it 9.5 weddings in a marquee.
Ooh. Very
Because
nice.
that's what accents are called in England.
Very nice.
Jesse, how about you?
I am going to stick with what I'm going to give it a 9.95 because we did not get Eccleston. Borrowed inhalers.
Very nice. Very nice. Ken?
Okay, so I'm going to give it 9.75
Ooh,
missing horses.
very nice.
Really, you guys got to show me up like that.
And I'm going to give it another
10.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to give it a 10 because, again, Eccleston.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it 9.5 machines that go ding.
Oh, good.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.
Yes.
So
Is the machine that goes ding related to the machine that goes bing? Only real Monty Python fans.
Or
will get that reference.
icky patang zapoing zowie.
Doing.
You mean the knights who go knee?
He said it. He said it.
Yep. All right.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yep. Now, Jesse, you mentioned that you have a reverse the polarity, so I guess I'll throw mine away.
No. No, you.
No, go ahead.
You had said anyone else want to fill in since I'm leading the discussion.
I never heard back, so I wrote.
No, so Charles, have you not noticed that I usually send you an agenda like an hour before we're going to record?
I tried to be considerate. That's why I did at least.
You did, and you gave it really one of the things. This is not a surprise to anyone. There was a lot of data and a lot of information out there for the 50th anniversary. And this is when I have a thing of popcorn at the movies, I don't want iced tea. I want a soda. Charles and I have had this discussion all the way back 20 years ago. He believes that Pepsi is a perfect companion to chocolate chip cookies, and I argue that milk cookies.
No, I've never said that. You're confusing me with somebody else.
I think you love Pepsi. I swear.
No. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy, and Coke and regular Coke. So yeah, that's not me.
Okay, maybe it wasn't.
I'm classic Coke guy.
Okay, so Coke with chocolate chips then, and I'm a chocolate chips and milk. So every time I watch this, I have to go watch the Five-ish Doctors reboot. And every time I watch the Five-ish Doctors reboot, I have to watch the Day of the Doctor. They are just two sides of a perfect coin.
And then he's stuck in this infinite loop.
Yes, I am in a bootstrap paradox myself.
He's going circular on himself.
How did you ever stop it to talk to us?
And it is everything you wanted, because it did do the marching of anyone they could have that has been even remotely connected with Doctor Who. We're going to give you a spot. And it is with so much love and affection. It is, I think, just a, pardon the pun, perfect companion to the 50th anniversary. Yes. And this was, Davison kind of wrote this up, and for those, everyone's seen it, but it is just a wonderful joke of seeing the classic doctors trying to figure out how to get on the anniversary special, and everyone is there, and everyone seems to have a lot of fun with it, and I love. And then honorable mention is Doctor Who and Adventures in Space and Time. I think that is the kind of thing you can show to any person, not even a fan of Doctor Who, because just it's a really cool movie to see how everything started.
Agreed.
So,
Totally agree.
Karen,
Those are great extras.
yeah. Karen, Ken, do you guys have any before Charles gives us his?
Oh, I don't have to give mine. You did the job so well.
No, I think all the rest of the stuff that went along with the 50th anniversary is pretty much you have to watch it.
And I love the fact,
Like the Night of the Doctor and all that.
Yeah.
All the stuff that came out. This is
finding those little
compulsory
web episodes is harder than finding the main show.
Right.
I mean,
Well, if you got the Blu-ray like myself, you got the Night of the Doctor, you got the 50th anniversary special. Now you don't have the Five-ish Doctors reboot, which kind of pissed me off.
Yes.
So I have to watch that online.
Yes, and it is very hard to find that.
Or you can acquire it.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yes.
Remaster your Blu-ray.
How would one do that, Karen?
I cannot say.
Not hard.
So, Charles, were you going to pick the Five Doctors?
No, I was not going to pick the Five Doctors.
Okay.
Were you going to pick Hellbent?
No, I was not going to pick Hellbent, although I did get your email, Ken.
Actually get it off the floor. I think we're going to talk through
Idiot.
this with it. Give yourself a paper cut.
Yes.
Lemons.
You have gotten rid of my reason for living.
All right. So, since you're going to make me do this, all right. I picked the Three Doctors.
Okay.
This was the first serial from season 10 in 1973, the 10th anniversary, written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin. And just like in this episode, we had three doctors. We had, so we got that initial easy connection. This was the first multi-doctor crossover. So I can imagine being in 1973 watching this going like, oh my God, all the doctors together. This must have blown everybody's.
All the doctors together.
Well, the two doctors didn't happen until 1986. So
right.
That was a little farther down.
Wait.
No. Colin Baker.
Oh, no, you're right. Episode 65. I'm sorry. You're right.
Dude, remember
with Charles, man.
Remember who you talked to.
I was getting my numbers backwards because Parker and I are excited about the fact that the Three Doctors, episode 65, is 2 weeks from now. So
I shake my finger at you.
Thanks.
You dare transgress against me.
Oh.
Anyway. Anywho.
Adorable.
Yeah, that's
I love all of you. He took it. Now he's going to give himself paper cuts.
I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. Okay, so we have Gallifrey under siege, with the powers being drained through a black hole, and you can tell how desperate the Time Lords are for help because they break the first law of time and allow the second Doctor to aid the third Doctor. So we have our meeting of Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, who are just hilarious together in this episode, if you've seen it. But the problem is their doctors don't seem to get along very well. They kind of bicker with one another. Kind of like, some people here. No, just kidding.
And every other doctor that meets up with every other doctor.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, so the Time Lords decide, well, okay, pairing 2 with 3 didn't really work out that well, so let's try to bring in the first Doctor, William Hartnell. But sadly, William Hartnell isn't as healthy in this episode, so he can't really walk around with everybody in scenes, so they kind of keep him chair-bound, and they explain it away that the William Hartnell's Doctor is trapped in a time eddy, whatever a time eddy is, and can only communicate through the TARDIS view screen. The doctors eventually figure out that the black hole is a bridge between universes, so they end up crossing that bridge, bringing along Joe Grant, Sergeant Benton, and the Brigadier. So instead of Kate Stewart, you got the Brigadier. To an antimatter universe to face Omega, who is, in my opinion, a very underrated villain. They really should do more with. Omega, for Jesse's benefit, because I'm sure he doesn't know, is the solar engineer who created the supernova that gave the Time Lords their powers. It kind of like brought about Time Lord society.
Okay.
And he was originally thought to be dead, killed in the explosion that created this feat of solar engineering. But turns out he ended up in this antimatter universe. And, oh, by the way, he's now insane. So he's been trapped in the antimatter universe as nothing but pure will, because apparently, turns out, we find out his body has been completely destroyed. And he's only just his own will keeping himself together. He wants the doctors to share his exile, but of course ends up defeated. The Time Lords get their power back. They paid the electric bill, and the first and second doctors get shunted back to their respective times. And most importantly, for third Doctor fans, the Time Lords forgive him for initially leaving Gallifrey, and they reward him with a new dematerialization circuit and restore his knowledge of time and space, effectively ending his exile on Earth.
Very nice, sir.
So,
And then he dropped the notes.
Yes.
It's not as effective as dropping the mic.
it doesn't go thunk.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Close enough.
So that's my recommendation.
Plus, then Zoom comes through and he keeps sending villains
Yes. Yes.
to stop the doctors.
And then Rip Hunter shows up in his time sphere.
Isn't that Time Eddie the same gag they used then in the Five Doctors to explain away Tom Baker's? Tom and
they had him.
Sheila are in a bubble.
Yeah, they had him trapped because Tom Baker didn't want to be it, so they had to use shot footage from
Right.
an episode that wasn't completed.
Little-
So
Little
they're kind of all wavy on a view screen, but it just can't quite get all these doctors that are supposed to be there together, can we?
No.
Actors. Christopher Eccleston is now the new Tom Baker. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Christopher.
Yeah, because we a lot of fans really resented Tom Baker for years for that.
Although I didn't.
Yeah.
Well,
I really didn't.
he was your doctor, but I kind
Just because I loved him, period.
I resented him because it's like, dude, why didn't you do the Five Doctors? Come on.
Well, but, there's reasons for everything, I think.
And, another thing that I think was really nice is, a year or two later, right, it was the 10th anniversary of the Doctor returning. And it was, they didn't do anything special. And I think that was the right call, right? That they're like, how timey-wimey to have your 10th anniversry after your 50th anniversary and just kind of moved on with it. So
how many anniversaries does this show need?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, so I guess all we have to do is just wait till Christopher Eccleston turns 80, and then he'll want to associate with the show again.
Yes, absolutely.
And then
Yes.
he'll do Big Finish audios by then, or whatever they have,
Right, absolutely.
have in the future.
That's
Mhm.
right.
But-
He'll be in transparent iPads and all that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hologram, whatever, something.
Flying cars.
Yeah, flying cars. Yeah.
And I do.
Where's
I have
the
to
jetpack?
mention. I said this on another podcast I did today, by the way, TV Rewind, which I did. He was amazing in The Leftovers. They just did season 2, and they just wrapped it up. He was insane. He didn't have as big a role in season 1, so I wasn't expecting it. It came out of left field. He had a huge role in season 2, and I really had forgotten how great an actor he was until I saw The Leftovers. And I was like, dude, I forgot how great you are. And he was just amazing. So, I would have loved to see him in this again. And,
Well, maybe we'll see him again. Hopefully those rumors you mentioned earlier are true.
Yeah,
And then we'll see him again, maybe. That'd be awesome.
that would
If,
be
if,
nice.
if nothing else, like I said, maybe someday he'll do a Big Finish audio, Ninth Doctor Adventures.
Mhm.
maybe.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
Maybe. Well,
That
he's
would
gonna-
be
It looks like the Leftovers is coming back again, and if it does, he'll be there. So
Okay.
good.
All right.
Did you guys take part in the Humble Bundle for Big Finish Audios this
No.
last week?
No.
Oh man, I got
I
like
have
12
most
of
of them. So yeah, I've got a.
Yeah, you've got most of them. I got like 12. It was
Oh, they're great.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gonna got something to listen to.
So okay, well, I think that about does it for now.
I have acquired them.
You have acquired them, yes.
Of course you have.
Yeah. We're going to be talking actually about some Big Finish audios coming up later in the year. Now, because
Absolutely.
we're going to be doing the War Doctor, because there are now going to be War Doctor Big Finish audios, which is just
Read by who?
John Hurt. John Hurt performing as the War Doctor in actual Big Finish audio adventures. It's set during the Time War. Yeah. So we'll be talking about those, and then we're also going to be talking about some Paul McGann Big Finish audio adventures. With Lucy Miller, which is just
Oh, very cool.
yeah. So she's great. Sheridan Smith, who plays Lucy Miller, is great. So anybody want to plug their stuff before we head out? Ken, you want to plug your Twitter handle or anything?
Yeah, as I say, I got nothing. I'm Dirkmaster everywhere, except Facebook because I don't do Facebook. But I'm Dirkmaster on Twitter and in G+ and email, and that's about it. I'm not very social.
That's okay.
Get off my lawn!
Yeah, that's me.
You're anti-social network.
Yes, exactly. Which is pretty much what Twitter is. It's just people yelling at each other and telling them they're stupid.
Twitter's the best.
Or like me, that they live tweet shows and spoil them for everybody else.
Yeah.
Because they should be watching instead
I
of...
have been
Yeah,
so
I just delete whole sections of you since I'm like a season behind on Flash and Arrow and all those stuff. I'm just ignoring them. Well, I can't watch them. I'm doing other stuff. So,
So he does listen to
I
the.
only do DVDs.
So you
I
don't listen to the Phantom Zone podcast, Ken? Shame
Not
on you.
well. I go back and I listen to the ones for episodes that I've seen. You see.
Okay. So
They're
you
just really old.
have to put them on a hold and go back.
Yes.
Oh man,
Better get on track, buddy.
dude,
Come on.
you're
There's no way.
missing out if you do not hear us rambling.
Step your game.
Anyway.
Our banter is legend. Wait for it, Gary.
Yeah. I knew what you're doing there. So, Karen, speaking of the wonderful Phantom Zone podcast, where can we find you?
Everywhere. But if you want to find out where everywhere is,
Next Stop Everywhere?
as in next stop everywhere, you can find me at Aleveria on Twitter, Aleveria.
Mhm.
And in my bio, there is an About Me link, about.me/Aleveria. Or you can just go straight there since I just gave it to you. And all of my links are there as well. And now you have to scroll down that page in order to see all my links. I'm so proud of myself.
Hooray for
And,
scrolling.
I have made a couple of New Year's resolutions. They're not really resolutions. One of them is to read 200 plus books, and that I will be chronicling that on my blog.
All right.
And another one is actually to write on that blog.
And we can find out your blog by clicking on those
It's
links.
on that page.
All
That
right.
was my segue into saying the link is the very last one on that page.
Very
So
nice.
my personal and silly blog. It says.
Very nice. And Jesse, I have a feeling where we can find you.
Yes, I am at Karen and I are together on Storming the Castle, and we are recording next week our big crossover with Castle Cast, and we're going to have all 5 of us talking about the half season of Castle, and we're it will be a fairly negative, I'm guessing. We're not happy with Castle right now.
Karen's ready to slit her wrist, apparently.
Yes. And then, of course, today yesterday I talked to a guy from Australia for Set Lusting Bruce, and this morning I talked to a lady from Boston, and I continue to enjoy talking to Bruce fans all over the world, and Karen is going to be joining me in the next couple of weeks. We got to get down a day, but she's going to be talking about Nerd Rock, and and I'm hoping in February, Charles is going to do a Reverse the Polarity Bruce podcast with me. I'm going to sign him a Springsteen album that is not well known, not like Born in the USA or.
It better be Born in the USA or earlier, because I can't stand anything afterwards.
Well, and that was the whole point. I want him to listen to something that he may not have heard, and then give his honest opinion about it. Kind of like, he had me watch classic Who episodes and then was interested whether I liked it or not. And
you're on the Doctor Who podcast. We talk Doctor Who.
yeah. But I do a Bruce Springsteen podcast, so I want you to be.
But I am not on the Bruce Springsteen podcast.
I'm just saying that's hey, fine, be a horrible co-host.
He's
Oh,
that's harsh.
Yes, it is, but that's okay.
Oh.
I just think it would be fun because you have wonderful taste in music, and I'm still trying to figure out a way.
Which is why I don't listen to Bruce Springsteen. Oh, no, just
wow, wow.
See, I can go there too, buddy.
Yeah, wow. So let me.
You just feel the love. We're good.
I do.
Just listen to
we kid because
Santa Claus is coming to town over and over and over again. Give your opinion
now
about
that song I like.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Bruce does a really good job with Santa Claus is coming to town.
He does. I love that song.
Absolutely.
That is great. So no problem there. All right. Me, of course, the usual. Charles at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on the Insta. Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus. Shout out to you, Karen.
Thank you.
And let's see,
Your blog?
Facebook, of course, and my blog of geeky things, damn good coffee and hot.
I love that.
Where we talk about all kinds of things like Next Stop Everywhere and the Phantom Zone podcast and comics, Doctor Who, you name it, sci-fi, whatever is piquing my multifaceted interest of the day. So,
Although it's mostly genre.
Mostly genre, but maybe not so much. But well, okay,
Really?
a lot of genre. It's a lot of genre. Okay, I admit it. So I think that about does it. Thank you guys for, I think, a really fun discussion.
And Charles, thank you for taking lead.
I hope
that was a lot of fun.
I tried to. I know I'm not up to your standard, but I'm trying.
No, you were great.
I'm giving it my best shot here. You set that bar really high, Jesse. So I have to try to keep up. I'm just struggling. I'm on the salmon, the Oliver Queen salmon ladder, trying to.
Very nice.
So Ken, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
And putting up. I hope you did, and putting up with our nonsense. And I guess that'll about do it. So next week, I think Jesse, your turn to take over again. And as we cover school reunion, the 10th episode.
Yes, absolutely. And so that should be fun. So for now, we're going to say keep hope alive, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.